Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to go over Karn, the Great Creator. A new Karn. This is the fourth Karn that we've gotten in the game. We've got Scion of Urza was Karn 1. Karn Reflective Silver was Karn 2. Karn Living Legacy was Karn 3. And Karn the Great Creator is now Karn 4. How does he compare to the others? Well, Karn 2 and Karn 3 are very niche planeswalkers. I've tried them all now, been playing around with them here and there, and they can be powerful with the right builds, but none of them match the flexibility of Karn Scion of Urza. Karn Scion of Urza has been and still continues to be one of the best planeswalkers in the game, and mostly because of his first ability, Thran Legacy. Pick one of the next 3 cards of your library, fetch the card, and exile the others. That fetch is really good. If it was a colorless card, your mana bonuses are increased by 1. If it was a colored card, your mana bonus in that color is increased by 2. Each mana bonus can't be raised by this ability more than 3 times. So, mana bonuses are +1 across the board. And so you just build up your mana bonuses by fetching cards from your library. So basically, you use his first ability to pump up his mana bonuses, and you get all the cards you need by fetching them. His loyalty, number 1, only costs 4, so that's also a key component of why he is so good. Karn, the Great Creator, let's take a look at his abilities. He gets also +1 across the board. We've got Creator's Engine, which is 7 loyalty. Fetch the first artifact card from your library. Your colored mana bonuses are increased by 2. Each of your mana bonuses can't be raised by this ability more than 3 times. It's a pretty similar ability, right? But there are some very key differences. First off, to even be able to use this ability, you have to have an artifact card in your library. I realized that when I took out artifacts, just trying all sorts of different builds with them, that you basically, if you don't add an artifact of any sort into your deck, then you basically are stuck at the mana bonuses you are given when you start the match. So that is one key thing. So there is a slight deck building restriction there. However, the advantage that he has over Karn Scion of Urza is that you don't have to put other colored cards in your deck to be able to raise the mana bonuses. It's just flat across the board. The most you can get on him is +7/+7 across the board. And so you raise those mana bonuses by 2 across the board there. However, it does cost 7 loyalty to use his first ability. And there is quite a difference between being able to trigger something with 4 loyalty and 7. We'll talk about that more as I show some of the decks. His other abilities: Assemble Machine. Create a construct token. Then that creature gets +X/+X and gains Hexproof and Defender. X is the number of artifact cards you control, including their reinforcements. So for the most part, what you end up with is a construct token that's about 10 or 11 or so. That's been my experience with them. So it's not bad, especially once you've gotten all the mana bonuses you need and you have room on the battlefield for an extra creature there. That's not bad. And his loyalty number 3 is Argentum's Might. Costs 15 loyalty to trigger. Reinforce all artifact creatures you control. Then your artifact creatures get +X/+X and gain trample. X is the number of artifact cards you control, including their reinforcements. So this one is probably the one I use the least, because a lot of times I'm not even playing with artifact creatures. And if I do happen to have a construct down, it's not that likely that I need to buff it in this way for that much extra loyalty. And trample isn't always relevant in games either. So by far, for either of the Karns, their first ability is their best. But in case you don't remember what Karn, Scion of Urza's other abilities do, Tolarian Legacy, pick one of the first 3 different cards from your exile. It gains 6 mana. It's 8 loyalty, and it's just okay. It's one I almost never use. If I'm like mastering cards or something like that, I use Karn's Major Construct token more. 12 loyalty, very cheap, to create a 12/12 creature, which is an artifact construct. And while you control 3 or more supports, this creature gains prevent damage. Can also be relevant. At the end of your turn, if you control 2 or more supports, the support you control gains 2 shields. Then return the first support from your graveyard to your hand, and it gains 10 mana. So all these are nice little side benefits that are cool to have in a token creature. And sometimes there are things that, like Ogre Attack, who can reinforce that token every time it attacks. So there is some utility there. But let's get back to Karn the Great Creator. So really what it comes down to, I feel, oh yeah, their deck builds. The deck builds are a little bit different than each other. So I'll get into explaining this deck in a bit here. But Karn the Great Creator, you can put 7 creatures into this deck. Same as Karn Scion of Urza, you only get 5 spell slots, which can make a difference for a lot of builds that you might be trying to do. Like if you're trying to build a more spell looping type of deck, for example, it makes it a little bit more difficult to do so than some of the other colorless planeswalkers. So that's something to also keep in mind. But you can put 7 supports into this deck, so that can also make a difference. I'm somebody who likes to play with a lot of supports, and even though I don't have more than 3 in here right now, I like having the ability to be flexible with my deck. So let's compare that to Karn, Scion of Urza. The reason I'm comparing them so much to each other is that they are very similar to each other in a lot of ways. So his decks are a little bit more restricted, 5 creatures at a time, 5 spells, and 6 supports only. So that's relevant for when you might be mastering cards and you're putting together a deck that you want to put more creatures in or supports in, for example. Karn, the Great Creator, gives you a little bit more flexibility in that way. So that is one thing to think about. Mastery is something that, if you guys don't know already, anytime you hit the next multiple of 10 levels, so if you go from 30 to 40, for example, once you hit that 40, you get a guaranteed non-dupe pack. So that is really valuable. And so a lot of us basically grind to master our cards. So this guy might be a good idea to throw in a bunch of unmastered cards, play some easy matches, get your 200 experience, and make your way to the next 10th level. So that's something that I probably will plan on doing with this Planeswalker eventually. But for now, let's talk about the decks that I have built for him. Okay, so this deck, I just really need to tell you guys about it because it is my go-to. Just need a win, need it fast, no objectives necessary. It just basically has everything I need in it. It has answers for most things, but the real point is just set up fast, loop it up, and ride off into the sunset with a victory. So it's got a lot of good cards in it from the latest set, Lost Cameras of Ixalan. The masterpieces in this set are some of the best overall that we've had in such a long time. Hall of Gemstone, Mana Field. Gain an extra swap, then increase your mana bonuses by 7 until end of turn. So that right there is why I like to use this card, is because that mana bonus increase, especially on Karn, who has flat mana bonuses all around, really good to get off in the early game. And the nice thing is that you get an extra swap because of the mana field. So it's not just, you happen to get 7 more mana on a cascade. Now you get to just make another swap and get more mana that way, and the mana bonuses will work for that. Also, a nice little bonus, trap 8, deal 10 damage to a random opposing creature. So a lot of times this has helped me out, but it's a little less reliable than you would think for trap 8. I feel like a lot of times I end up destroying a lot of my own traps with all the gem conversion I do in this deck, so that part is very secondary and usually only helps in the early game anyway. 10th with Discovery. Finally, we get some really good gem conversion back in Standard again. For 25 mana, you convert 20 gems to green. And a lot of times you're just getting all that 25 mana back and then some. But when you cast the spell, discover 4. Then if you have 4 or less cards in your hand, discover 4. So you get to possibly discover twice in the same turn. And if you're looping around, you get to use those cards again because you'll probably discover another 10th with discovery and keep converting and casting your cards that way. So not only is it a great gem converter, but it's also a bit of a loop engine too. So it's really good card. Just right up my alley. Golden Wish, along the same lines. Fetch the first 2 artifact support or vanguard cards from your library. Those cards gain full mana, then convert 20 gems to loyalty gems. So it's kind of like a meeting of the 5 in that you know which cards you're going to grab, even though they can be the same 2 cards you grab. So in a way, it's a little bit more powerful than meeting of the 5 in that regard, depending on how you feel about it. But also converting 20 gems to loyalty gems, that's the main reason to use this card, I think, because that frees you up to basically get this big conversion, and your loyalty, for the most part, gets all the way filled as soon as you catch this card. So just an amazing card. It's a spell, so there are a lot of ways to copy it and keep casting it. So it's great. What else can I say? Mox Emerald, yeah, PMA. We got Galta, Stampede Tyrant, one of the best utility creatures in Standard, and is probably worth a lot in Legacy at this point. So it's a 15/15 with Trample, does cost 24 mana, but when this creature enters the battlefield, convert 15 gems to green. And we'll be cheating this guy out in a few different ways. So it's rare that we'll be just having to pay the whole 24 mana every time we need them on the board. There are so many easier ways to do it. And yeah, it's just a really oppressive card. It gets really big really fast too. It's a 15/15. So that's also great. Atraxa, getting some blocking and lifelink. But for the most part, what we're using it for is the fetching, grabbing 3 cards with half their mana. But if you just discovered and then cast Atraxa, those cards that got half their mana from Discover will get the rest of it from Atraxa. So it really helps to keep the deck moving. Invoke Despair, got some card draw, has a lot of different types of removal attached to it. So it's a very good, just all around removal card for the pesky Vindicators and whatnot that you might run into while you're trying to destroy your opponent. And then Blossoming Tortoise, what more can I say about it? It helps get Galta on the board and Atraxa and Darksteel Citadel if we need it. And Darksteel Citadel is mostly there to be an artifact so that we can trigger his ability. And it's a land that Blossoming Tortoise can fetch and create some gem conversion at the beginning of our next turn. And it also lets us target, destroy, pesky Hixus or Suppression Bond. So very functional card. It's 21 mana, but we're going to get it out with at least Golden Wish or Blossoming Tortoise. And finally, Thunderous Debut, one of my favorite cards in Standard right now, because it automatically gets us one of the creatures that we want. We get to choose which creature to pull out of our library. And then if we got everything set up and we're starting to loop and do all that fun stuff, I don't mind using Bargain to destroy, one of my other Dark Steels or Moxes or even the Hall of Gemstone, because most likely we'll be getting those supports back anyway. And a lot of times we're just using this to keep a loop going anyway. So usually by the end of the turn or the next, you're in a position to win without even having to cast another support. So I think that's a very thorough explanation, and I'll show you how this deck works now in practice. Here we go. We got a Mox Emerald. Too bad it's not into Template Discovery, but we do want to Mox on the board. But that Golden Wish is going to make it so that we can just spam his first ability, and we just go right into Template Discovery. We will discover twice. Let's see, I want a Blossoming Tortoise and maybe a Thunderous Debut. And we go right into a Golden Wish. So that's going to get us more artifacts. So we got a Dark Steel Citadel. Don't need it yet. We might. Not even sure what they did. Endless Detour. Okay. See what we're up against here. So we fetch that artifact with his first ability, and now his bonuses are all 3 across the board. So let's see. What do we want to... Any notable cascades? Potential? Not that I see, so I'll just choose whatever. Okay. Tortoise went right into a Galta. Thunderous Debut. We'll put a Traxa down. Oh well. We'll see you again soon. Get another Atraxa, get that going, get another Thunderous Debut. Put Galta down, fill up the rest of our hand with mana. Thunderous Debut into an Atraxa. Tortoise. Got a Citadel. Got another Atraxa. Pretty well set up for, what was that, our third turn? And then all of our creatures are ready to go, so we can just, I think, cruise to victory right here. I forgot to see what even that support was that they put down, but it's probably not going to matter. We'll just do an Invoke Despair just in case it's something we need to get rid of. No, I guess not. Dark Steel crystallized it anyway, so it's gone. Whatever that was does not matter anymore. So I probably shouldn't have grabbed a Dark Steel, but oh well. That's fine. Get another swap. Did I already do this? No, not yet. So we're at, look at that. We're at 13 across the board because of Hall of Gemstone gave us +7. So that's on top of my +5 to mana bonuses on everything. So we are rolling. Tortoise brought an Atraxa down. I think I could have won that turn if I played it a little bit smarter, but it doesn't even matter. Galta doesn't even need to attack. We can just make that happen. He's mainly there for the gem conversion at this point, even though, it's already a 75. He's really such an amazing card, Galta. Oh, we won. And yeah, so that wasn't even the best play of that deck, but there was nothing that he could do. I mean, he had to really just like cast a great Aurora or something, and that's not even a card he can cast that would slow me down long enough. But those mana bonuses, once I get them all to +7 across the board, it's not going to take a lot of turns to get the rest of my cards back up and set up again. So just a really strong deck that wins fast and wins big. So a recent criticism that I got that I want to address here is that my deck builds are very much based on the best that I can build with my collection. And since I have a nearly complete standard and legacy collection, I can do just about anything I want. But most people are not in that same fortunate position. So, what do we got to do to make sure that people can at least have some taste of the builds that I'm working on here? So, we got to find alternatives that will work for what we're doing here in this deck. So let's take it one card at a time. Hall of Gemstone. Mana field gaining an extra swap, then increasing your mana bonuses by 7 until end of turn. So that we got a few different things there. If you want to gain an extra swap, we got Temporal Mastery, Alchemist Gambit, even Virtue of Strength. So Virtue of Strength here. If you have this one increases your mana bonuses by 3. No need for a mana field, but that is one way. I'm trying to remember if there are any other cards that like just across the board increase your mana bonuses that way. The Moxes do, but only for the respective color. So Mox Emerald, we'll just have to come up with something else for that when we get there. Tempt with Discovery is a great card. There's nothing in Standard that's going to convert 20 gems to green other than Galta. But our standby gem converter that has been in use since it came out is good old Cut Your Losses. Destroy the top 10 cards of your opponent's library and convert 10 gems to blue. That could also be a candidate for the graveyard deck. We got Golden Wish. Fetch the first 2 artifact support or Vanguard cards from your library. Those cards gain full mana, then convert 20 gems to loyalty gems. I mean, this is really the first card that's done a mass conversion of loyalty gems. So that one's hard to replace. But you can do things where you fetch cards from your library and give them full mana. Is there a spell that does that? Let's see what we got. So, fetch full mana. Well, there's Meaning of the 5, but you have to kind of build around it. We've got Farsight Ritual, gives you full mana. Yeah, Beseech the Mirror, that's one, gives you full mana if you bargain. So that's one there. Picking one of the first spell cards from. Okay, that's spells, but you get the idea. Nissa's Expedition. You can fetch a land card, give it full mana. So that's also Anchored to Reality. Here's one. Destroy a random artifact support you control and pick one of the first 4 artifact cards from your library. Fetch that card. That card gains full mana. So this is something that I actually haven't done, but if you get Shatter Gang Bros or Guillaume, no, yeah, if you get Guillaume, you can try putting this into one of your decks and you can fetch artifacts that way. So, yeah, let's say Anchor to Reality. We don't get the mass loyalty conversion, but it's something, right? Galta Stampede Tyrant. It's one of the few cards in Standard or Legacy that converts 15 gems to green in that way. So, another one that's hard to replace, but let's see. Convert gems as a creature. Well, Hellkite Igniter converts gems every turn, but how about enters the board? You know, we got Knight of the White Organ converts gems to white. That triggers when you convert a gem, so not the same. Elvish Mystic PMA converts 3 gems to green. So for our purposes, this is the second most per enters the board that we have available to us. We don't have a lot of those in standard, so that's why it's hard to replace. Atraxa, this one's tough to replace too. Depends on what part of the card you want. Do you want the flying lifelink vigilance death touch? Then maybe something like Kroxa and Kunaros. But if you want the fetching part of it, it's a few different ways you can go about it. But I would say actually let me clear the filter. Where'd he go? Zaitor's Envoy. It's not nearly as powerful as of an effect as Atraxas, but you are getting cards, giving them mana every turn as long as he stays alive. And when he attacks, he's giving cards mana to them as well. So that's a decent candidate there. Blossoming Tortoise. Well, Blossoming Tortoise is a tough one to replace as well because of all the different things it does. Beginning of your turn, convert X gems to green. Returning the last creature support land from your graveyard to play under your control. We actually got a few different ideas for that. We can do Kroxa and Kunaros. Where'd he go? Here we go. So, destroying the top 2 cards of your library. If there's 6 or more cards in your graveyard, pick one of the first 4 creature cards from your graveyard, then exile the first 5 cards from your graveyard. So, yeah, picking creatures out of your graveyard, putting them into play. You can also do one of my favorites, been kind of a staple card for me since it came out, Archpriestess Shadows. When a creature you control with Death Touch deals combat damage to your opponent's planeswalker, pick one of the top 4 non-spell cards from your graveyard and move that card into play under your control. Let's see. Darksteel Citadel can be replaced. Well, it depends. If you're using it for a land, if you're just using it to target supports, then it's not going to be the same, but you can do something like Void Rend, good old Demolish. How about that? It's cheap, so let's go there. And then finally, Thunderous Debut. If you don't have this card yet, my second favorite creature fetch card in Standard is still around, and that would be Threats Undetected. So yeah, here you go. Here's more of a budget version of this deck. Obviously have not tried it yet, but that gives you some of everything. Yeah, we'd still need to figure out something to replace Mox Emerald with. If you went through Battles of the Ages, then hopefully you picked up Chimil, the Inner Sun. This is a great card. It actually kind of comes and goes out of my decks, out of the Karn one. So this is a great artifact. At the end of your turn, you get to discover 4 twice. And can't have cards in your hand can't have their mana drained or raised by effects your opponent control except for ward effects. So that's a nice little defensive thing on top of the great effect that it has. So there you go. There's a little bit more of an accessible version. No masterpieces, couple mythics. Hopefully you have some of these. Virtuous Strength you can get from Fibblethip as well as Zaitor's Envoy. I don't think Archpriest of Shadows you can do, but that's fine. So if you guys want to try this deck out, if you're able to. Let me know what you think. See if this budget version works for you. Quick little update to this deck. I added Maestro's Charm to it and took out the, what was it, Forging the Ink or whatever it's called. Because, yeah, there wasn't enough artifacts to destroy to make that card worth it. And this one will destroy your library a bit, and it will help fetch a card you want, and it will give Archpriestess Shadows a way to fetch cards to the battlefield. So it's a good little change. It made a difference in my game that I tested the deck out with, and yeah, there you go. Okay, here's one. It's a little different flavor here, but we're basically doing a lot with the graveyard, putting things into it, taking things out of it, taking advantage of all that is happening. So same sort of core where we got Blossoming Taurus, Template Discovery, Golden Wish, Hall of Gemstone. Those cards, if you can put them into a deck, just dominate. It's what I would consider the meta right now. I could probably make room in this deck for Galta, but I think I was just going all in with the graveyard stuff instead. So we got Breach the Multiverse. So that's gonna automatically make it so that Shieldred will flip. And if you don't remember what Shieldred does, mill 8, exile all cards from your opponent's graveyard, exile this card, and then create a True Scriptures token. And that True Scriptures token is bonkers. Destroy an opposing Vanguard support. First chapter, if you can't destroy target opposing creature. Chapter 2, your opponent discards 3 cards, and you destroy the first 3 cards of your opponent's library. And number 3 is the kicker. Move all creature and support cards from all graveyards into play under your control, and return the first card named Shieldred from your exile to the battlefield under your control. So it comes right back to play, and when this creature enters the battlefield, destroy the first opposing non-token creature. So you're just doing so much with this. You're going to be putting so much into the graveyard for Shieldred to take out, so that also helps. Jace the Perfected Mind. It's all about his -3. Destroy the top X cards of target player's library, then your opponent loses life equal to the number of cards in that player's graveyard. X is equal to 3 times the support shield. So that's going to be helping to just put things into either our graveyard or our opponent's graveyard and be doing a little bit of extra damage. Wild Research is really cool because the more cards you put into the graveyard, the more mana that you can put into the cards that it draws. So this card ends up being a pretty good little mana engine in this deck. And then finally, Portal to Phyrexia is mostly here because it's an artifact, but it gets fetched with full mana by the Golden Wish, and we use it to keep pulling things out of either graveyard if we want. So a lot of synergy there. Just overall, a lot of synergy. And then Brilliant Restoration, we just grab everything that we're still missing back into play if we need to. So let me show you how it works. Okay. We'll get Blossoming Taurus Jace down first, and then Wild Research will do more for us then. Yeah, that's the thing. See, if this was Karn, Scion of Urza, I would have hit my loyalty ability already. But it just takes him a little bit longer to get going, which, depending on what type of game you're playing, can make a big difference, right? Okay, let's see. He's gonna kill my tortoise, unfortunately. So let's see what we can do. Oh, well, look at that. Shieldred came out for the rescue. So get a 5 match there. Let's destroy our library a bit. Give them another Shieldren down, I guess. Probably could have saved that, but oh well. Okay, we get a Hall of Gemstone down, so that's good. Wrap. Portal, maybe? Extra swap. Is that a wild research? Okay. We'll trigger that. Get some mana into our spells. So that's awesome. Once wild research gets going, we can really make things happen with it. So let's see if I could flip Shieldred this battle. Let's see. I'll steal something. Sure. um let's see if I don't just kill him already. I am winning too fast to show you what Shieldred does, but that's not a bad problem to have, right? So yeah, there you go. That is typically how it goes. If it goes a longer battle, then I'll end up doing more with Shieldred's sagas, but that was not necessary this time. So yeah, last one I'll show you here is actually going to be a legacy deck. So it's really fun, and I think you'll have a blast watching it. Okay, so here's a legacy deck for you guys that works all around Marionette Master. When this creature enters the battlefield, fabricate 3. When a support you control is destroyed, your opponent takes damage equal to this creature's power. So, pump up the Marionette Master as much as you can so that each support destroyed does tons of damage. Old Gnawbone is here to make tons of tokens every time a creature you control deals combat damage to your opponent's planeswalker. Shattering Brothers, Shat Bros, Shout Out Goths. Create 2 food tokens. Destroy 10 gems of your planeswalker's color. So that's when you bargain. So when a card you control is destroyed during your turn, destroy an opposing card at random. So that is not only a way to trigger Marionette Master more, but we also can wipe our opponent's side clean of the board as well. And then these other cards are here to help get the rest of them onto the battlefield. You got the brand new Mana Crypt. First card in your hand that can gain mana gains full mana, then you lose 9 life. Mana Field. It's actually bugged in that it's basically making us take damage instead of lose life. So that life you lose does not come back to you at the end of your battle. So that's something to keep in mind. Mox Opal. Mana Field again. First colorless card in your hand gains full mana, then gain 2 mana for each non-basic gem on the board. So when you get a bunch of gold tokens on here, that means that's basically going to fill your hand with mana for the other part of that trigger. And then Mox Lotus, increase your mana bonus of the match color by 1 until end of your next turn. Then the first card in your hand gains full mana. So a lot of full mana stuff here. Golden Wish is going to help us get those all on the board. Hazoret's Undying Fury is going to make it so we can cast all of our spells right away. Deploy the Gatewatch. Going to put all our creatures on the board. And Shatterstorm, each support is destroyed. So this is going to be a nice little win con for us as well. So yeah, I think that's all I need to do to explain this deck. So let's go ahead and get into it. Mana Crypt down, actually. First, we get to that loyalty ability. That'll be nice. Okay, we get Hazards. Clear some room. Taking us a while to set this deck up. Doesn't usually take this long, but just how it goes. It's just one of the weaknesses that this Karn has, and that it can sometimes take a while to get to his ability there. So we'll get deploy out first so that we don't waste that mana crypt taking damage. Get a little bit of life back from our food tokens at least. Sure. And then we'll get our Huff and hopefully deploy a bunch of stuff. Any support to destroy? Oh, there is one. No Gnawbone yet. Oh, there you are. So we'll get you down. Well, we didn't let him get to his ability anyway, so it doesn't even matter at this point. So, yeah, if you don't have a construct or artifact creature on the board, then the third ability doesn't do anything. So we'll just hit Creator's Engine. We're at +7 across the board. Just for fun, let's do another Hazards and Dying Fury. I'll hit Not Now just because I want to see what happens. If we hit another Golden Wish, it's just gonna hit a Cascade anyway and win the game for us. So yeah, there we go. So that was a good battle to share with you because it kind of highlighted one of his few weaknesses, which is he can be slow to start because that first ability can sometimes take a while to get to. And then you have to have a way to reliably keep triggering it. And if you don't have Golden Wish, there are other ways you need to go about doing it. And that would be mass gem conversion in other ways. So that would be my recommendation. Okay, what do I think of him overall? Is he an S tier walker? Yes. Is he better than any other Karn besides Scion of Urza? Yes. Is he as good as Scion of Urza? That's a little bit more complicated of a question to answer because it really depends. How much do you value Karn Scion of Urza's ability to fetch the card you want, the relative cheapness of his ability, and those mana bonuses that you can target a little bit more? If those things do not matter to you and you like the whole construct token buffing thing, buffing your artifact creatures, you notice that in my videos I did not showcase that part of his abilities at all. I just don't think that they're worth really building around for the most part when you have such other powerful tools at your disposal by having him. I don't think it's really worth spending that much deck space to. So in that regard, it depends, right? There's a few different things you got to think about. However, I think it's really worth having both of these planeswalkers in your collection. If you're low on resources and can only pick one, then that makes it a little bit more difficult. But I really don't think you can go wrong with either Karn. This Karn, the Great Creator, if you already have Scion of Urza, he's definitely worth picking up too, because there really aren't any other really good colorless planeswalkers in the game. The other ones are fairly niche, or their abilities just don't stack up to Scion of Urza for the most part. And this is the first one to come along in years that actually holds its own against them. So this gives you more flexibility. You can use two cards in one event in some of the older events that don't let you do that. So that's also great. So yeah, I think that this guy is going to be a staple walker going forward. I think that I would recommend him for any collection, whether or not you have Scion of Urza yet. Definitely get them both. And if you're in the mood to spend a little money on this guy, now that all planeswalkers going forward are going to be 30 USD, that means you don't have to pay a premium for a colorless walker like you used to. So if you want to think about it, you're getting a $10 discount in the vault when you pick them up. And yeah, if you are the type of person who likes to buy planeswalkers, definitely don't skip this one. He gets a very high recommendation for me, and I think he's one of the best planeswalkers to come into the game in a while. Depending on how you think about him, I might put him above Ren and Realmbreaker as far as a powerful planeswalker. I think Ren and Realmbreaker has a lot more explosive power in the early game than maybe Karn, the Great Creator, does, but it's a mono green, and you could use basically any card in this deck. I mean, depending on if the node that you're playing in lets you. That's the only thing about colorless walkers. When it comes to events, you can only use the cards in the color of the node that they correspond to. So that's also something to keep in mind. Thank you again to Webcore for sending me this Planeswalker. I think he's great. I think he's a lot of fun. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what people do with him, because he's very powerful and you can literally build any deck you want with him. So he's going to be exciting to see out there. And yeah, hope you guys pick him up. Hope you guys enjoyed this review. Make sure to leave a comment, like the video if you do. I hope you're subscribed, because I'm looking forward to continuing to share all of my findings in this game, and I get a real satisfaction out of sharing my knowledge of the game with all of you guys. So thanks again. Happy 2024, and I'll see you in the next video.